But I'm certainly not going to bet on the Bears in this situation, though Trubisky has come on a little bit. He hasn't been reliable by any stretch. So, yeah, I think you got to stick with the Cardinals in this situation.
Bears have a very winnable game this week with Jacksonville. Then we'll see. RC, next up, NFC West, Seahawks, Rams. Who you got?
I'm going to take the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks win the head-to-head matchup against the Rams. That'll be in Seattle. They've been playing better defensively. And you look at that second half of the Los Angeles Rams games, that was kind of when it started. And then the Seahawks finished with the San Francisco 49ers, whereas the Rams finished with the Arizona Cardinals. I just think they have a better schedule. I think right now they're playing a little better football, and Russell Wilson finds a way to get it done.
And the Rams just lost to the Jets. Meanwhile, Graziano, Washington or the Giants in the East? Who you got?
This is an ugly one, that's for sure. But I will take Washington. They have the tiebreaker edge on the Giants. I'm sorry, no, they don't have the tiebreaker. They have the tiebreaker edge on the Giants. No, they lost to
the Giants have the tiebreaker.
I have no idea what I'm talking about. It's probably going to be the Giants now. Washington is my pick, but obviously I'm an idiot.
Washington will wind up winning that division, he says. Meanwhile, let's talk about a team that will not only likely win its division, but will have all kinds of expectations on it heading into the playoffs, and that is the New Orleans Saints, who get a lot of praise for their performance in a loss against the Chiefs on Sunday. But despite the good vibes, Sean Payton was asked yesterday why anyone should expect the Saints to go on a title run given the team's postseason struggles and heartbreak the last 3 years. Here's what he said.
I think there's a little laziness relative to research and saying, well, they get to the playoffs, they're one and done. Not really. Will it need to be the Super Bowl? Yeah, probably so. I mean, but you know what? That's a good measuring stick, and that gives you an indication of how organizationally the culture's changed.
So I thought that was a very interesting thing for him to say, Dominique Foxworth. As you heard it, what's your reaction?
You know where I stand on these sorts of things. Good coaches like Sean Payton recognize that they can use the media to their advantage. He is talking to his players. He's resetting their mind. He's finding something to point to, an enemy that they can all look at. Right now, he's just saying, like, no one thinks we can do it. He's doing the same thing that coaches do. He's a smart man. He's doing this right now. But I think that all the things he said also are very true. The culture in that organization must be incredible. To consider that they bounced back from the Minnesota Miracle and also that missed pass interference call to be able to still be competitive going forward, like stuff like that crushes teams. So I think he's right, and I think this team has not peaked too early. They'll be fine in the playoffs, and peaking too early has nothing to do with Drew Brees' arm strength, which I think is going to be the deciding factor on how far they go.
Well, listen, I have to say this, Dominique. I agreed with the first part of what you said, which is that I think Sean Payton is talking to his players through the media. I have to disagree with the second part. They have peaked too early the last few years. That may not be the reason they get knocked out. But, Ryan Clark, it feels to me like 11 weeks into the season every single year, they look like the best team in the NFL. And by the time they get to the playoffs, they don't. I don't think that's an unfair way to characterize the way the last few years have gone in New Orleans. What do you think?
I mean, I think they've played extremely well during stretches of certain seasons, and they lost some games. I mean, you can't expect Stephon Diggs to catch a ball and Marcus Williams to run right by him. You can't expect an official to be looking at Roby Coleman, hit a guy before the play, hit him in his helmet, and not throw a flag. And so those aren't excuses. Those are things that just happen. And yes, you have to win the football game, but I don't see it this way. Listen, when Master P, when they dropped the True album, they thought that could have been their hype. But later on, we got Make 'Em Say, right? We signed Mia X. We signed Mystical. And that's what the Saints have done. Every year they've come back and found ways to be competitive. It is about a culture. It is about a belief. And so when you look at this team going into the playoffs, playing great defense still, Drew Brees having to get back in the rhythm, and where they were against the Kansas City Chiefs in a game where Drew didn't play well early, this is one of the best teams in the NFC. And they have to get breaks. Things have to go right. But that's everybody. That's every season. And I think the Saints are right in the thick of the NFC hunt, just like the Packers, just like the Seahawks, just like the Buccaneers. This isn't a team you want to play or you can count out right now.
What's the look on your face, Nate?
Oh, no, I just was wondering. I wanted to ask Dan who he thought Emmanuel Sanders is. Is he Snoop Dogg, Mia X, Mystical? Who is he in this analogy? Who did they sign? Yeah, obviously, I'm giving you a chance to bounce back from your rough start earlier.
You're not putting me in the best position to succeed. I got to be honest.
That's exactly right. That's terrible coaching, Dominique. That's just awful coaching. You got to know your talent. Okay, that's like actually asking Mitch Trubisky to play the West Coast offense.
All that's terrible coaching. I gave him multiple choice. That's an easy dunk. Just say, I don't know, mystical. And I would have said, way to go, taking over for the 9-9 in the 2000.
Hopefully, when we do the show live, we'll get all this right.
If I could somehow circle this back to the place that I thought it began,
Why?
it would be to say that part of it, look, I understand that game they lose to the Rams, it might be the worst call of all time, but the reality is they didn't play well that day. And they didn't play well in the playoff game last year against Minnesota when they lose at home. And they have looked, and part of it might be that Breeze, we have said
Greeny, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Can I sit in your seat, Greeny? Can I sit in your seat?
Sure.
Every season, can you pick the winner of the Super Bowl by how they're playing in Week 11?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not, right? So we can't now place this on the Saints and say that they underachieved in the playoffs. Getting to an AFC championship, even when you're the number one seed, is difficult. And losing that game happens from time to time. I don't necessarily know that it's about peaking during the middle of the season as it is executing in those moments. There's been some moments that they haven't executed, but that isn't to say that they peaked too early and weren't in the hunt late in the season.
Come on, Dan. You got something to say. Save yourself, Dan. Say something smart.
They're supposed to go to NBA. I was at those last two Saints playoff losses. They had the chance to win the game, even after the pass interference penalty.
Dan.
They played lousy against the Vikings last year. You can learn from those experiences and be a better January team, and that does not mean that you're a terrible team or that you can't win the Super Bowl. But they have to do better in those games. They have to.
That is analysis. Way to go. Way to bounce back, boy.
There we go.
Just don't ask me about the
Put a
tiebreakers.
bookmark in that. We're coming back to the NFL. But if you're just joining us, we began with the NBA, whose season began last night. And that meant the return of that man, Kevin Durant, making his debut as a Brooklyn Net with his new teammate, Kyrie Irving. And the two of them were on fire early. That is Durant's first bucket. In his return, it's a three. And then Kyrie Irving would knock one of those down as well from the corner here. Durant and Kyrie combining to score 27 points in the first quarter. Golden State had 25. Nets up 15 right before the half. Look at the range. Kyrie drilling one. He had 24 in the first half. The Nets were up 18 points. Third quarter, the Nets are pulling away. Spencer Dinwiddie to Durant, who throws it down. KD scored 22. Kyrie 26. Steve Nash, his first win as the head coach, and the Nets win one easily. Meanwhile, the nightcap last night, the Lakers and the Clippers, LeBron James getting his fourth ring as the championship rings were distributed, but it was a night that would belong to the Clippers. Kyrie taking it strong. We're going the other way. Dennis Schroeder to LeBron James. He would throw it down. He had 22 in 28 minutes, but Paul George would take this game over in the fourth quarter. Here he is late in the third, taking it strong, giving the Clippers a 6-point lead in the fourth. It's more from George. George knocking down the three. He would score 33 points on the night. Kawhi would add 26. Here comes some of those. Kawhi working on Alex Caruso. Feels like a mismatch. Clippers win it 116-109 to take the opener in what figures to be a good battle all year long, and we should have a bunch of them on Friday. The annual NBA on Christmas Day tradition continues. 5 games, noon Eastern on ESPN. Pelicans Heat. Then on ABC, we got Warriors Bucks. Then Nets Celtics. Then the Mavs and the Lakers on ABC and ESPN. And cap the day with the Clippers and the Nuggets at 10:30 Eastern. Your traditional Christmas Day NBA coming your way here on ESPN.